everyone. Today's video has been a request from 2 of you, but the really funny thing is I was going to do this video anyway. I kind of laughed on the inside and had a small grin when you both asked, could I please do a video about weaving in yarn ends? So I have. So while making this granny square to show you how to weave the yarn ends in, I also was able to reinforce starting stitches and a few different methods of your finishing stitch. Ultimately for me, it always comes back to using the invisible method as the method I prefer. I have a little mantra for weaving the yarn ends in, and it is to change directions at least twice and also break through the fibers of your yarn with your needle tip at least twice as well. So let's go and get into it and I'll show you how I do mine. Let's start this granny square off with a double magic circle. So that's wrapping your yarn around 2 fingers twice, pulling your loop through, yarn over and making chain 1. Now, first round is the only one that I ever use for 3 chain as a double crochet. So 1, 2 and 3. Now I do a 4th chain because that's my 1 chain corner space. We're going to do a traditional granny square here, so that's 1, 2 and 3 double crochets in US terminology. Chain 1, 1, 2 and 3 double crochets, chain 1, 1, 2 and 3 double crochets, chain 1. Now we only need to make 2, 1 and 2, because they will join up with this solo stitch over here. Take your work off your hook. Pull your yarn end gently to see which loop cinches in. Grab the loop that does cinch in and pull it until the other loop disappears. Now you just pull your yarn end and that loop too will disappear. So here we are with 12 double crochets and 4 chain 1 spaces. We're going to snip that off, pull your yarn through, and with your large-eyed darning needle, pop your yarn on. To finish off this round, we are going to do a slip stitch under the 4th chain. So we did 3 chain for the stitch, and there's a reason that we use the 4th. It's because if you go under that V of the 4th and make a new V, it sits over top of the first stitch made. So that makes it an invisible finish because you can't tell. I hope you can see that. You can't tell where it has started and ended. Then I turn it over and I work down the back of that first stitch. Then I'll go up the second one. And what we need to do is try and break through the threads of the yarn. You ideally want to go over and back twice and break 2 threads of the yarn. That will give you a nice secure yarn end. I'm going to go down low a little bit here, trying to break through my yarn as I go. Now I'm going to turn and come back. Again, breaking that yarn. That helps a lot with keeping your yarn end tight. and again. You do run out of space a little bit on this first round because you've also got this center one to weave in. So I'm going to go up the back of this stitch, work across, I'm going to work across that chain space. So this stitch will be crocheted over in the next round. And I'm just going to go down the next stitch, break through a few more fibres and come out. Okay, let me snip that one off so we can see the other one. This is the tail from our magic circle. So this one's nice and easy. What I do is basically, I do just go round and round the bottom of the clusters. However, when I come to go over top of them again, I try to do it in a different space. So this is 4, so I've gone around each side. Now I'm going to try and come out the stitch further along and break through the thread. So we're not inserting and coming out in the same place as we did before, breaking through that thread. Breaking through another lot of thread, and last one. Snip off that yarn. And that is going nowhere, I tell you. You know if you've done a really good weave-in if you can't pull it undone yourself. Okay, let's go with round 2. Round 2, I am going to do a standing starting stitch. So slip stitch on my hook. You'll see this all the time from me. Yarn over because we're doing double crochets. Now we're going into any corner space that we can find, pulling up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. So that's 1 double crochet, 2 and 3, chain 1 for our corner, and another 2 double crochets for a granny cluster. Now over to the next corner. We're going to make 1 cluster, 1 chain and 1 cluster. Chain 1, 1, 2 and 3. I'm just going to show you a few different ways here of finishing off and hence sewing yarn ends in. 2 and 3. Last one. This is also how I do my very best granny square. Chain 1. You'll see I don't like to have too many chains in the corners. I like it to be snug. All right, now we're going to snip off our yarn, pull that through, pop it on your needle. Now again, we come over to where we started and we can see that that is our starting double crochet. We need to go under the little V on the left of the starting double crochet, simply because the way we're finishing off creates another V which needs to sit over top of the first one so you don't get a miscount happening. I take the stitch back down in the center of where I came from. So there you have your invisible finish. Turn your work over, and here is our yarn end coming out the center of that last stitch. So now we can start working through the bottom of the corner clusters. We have a bit more space here. So as I'm going backwards and forwards, I'm still focusing on breaking through fibers. Going again, breaking through a fiber at the end there. Now I'm going to go up that last stitch again and work my way across to the very first stitch. So you have more than one stitch joining up here, because see how the others have two, or they have three really. You want it to look as similar as possible. So this one now has 1, 2, 3. Again, an invisible finish. I'm going to go down to the bottom of this corner, work my yarn through. So I've broken through some of the red thread as well, red yarn I mean. One more turn back. Breaking through a thread there, and another. Let me show you how I do this when the yarn end becomes too short. I do the actions with the needle without the yarn on, pulling it closely to our work, threading the yarn into the eye, and now I can pull that through. So I can snip that end off and we'll work in the other one. Righto, it too, I'm going to take it across so that it secures the stitch, because currently it's at the back and it's kind of flapping in the breeze. So take it over, pop it down the back of that last stitch, working in and out. Now take it in and around the bottom of the corner stitches. Again, breaking through your yarn. I'm going to go back again. And then work up the back of some of the other stitches, just so it doesn't get too bulky by using the same place all the time. Working through, again, my yarn tail has gotten too small and I have to put it on my needle on the run. I'm just going to go back to where I came from there. Here we go. Snip that one off. That's round 1 and 2 of the very best granny square I can make. Round 3, this time we're going to start with the 2 stacked single crochets, so I can show you how to finish with that and then weave in your yarn ends. So I'm doing a standing single crochet, so no yarn over, popping hook in, pulling yarn up, loop over and pull through 2. Now we put your hook in the very center of that single crochet, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2. So that's our first double crochet, and I always call them double crochet lookalikes because that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to have this standing stitch look like a double crochet so it doesn't stand out. So that's 1, 2 and 3, chain 1, 1, 2 and 3. Now working along the side, I don't do any chains in between these clusters at all. I only chain 1 in the corners. I just don't like a loose and floppy granny square. I'll go off and finish this. Okay, I'm at the end of the round. Snip off your yarn, pulling that through. Pop it on your hook, and again finding your first stitch, which is right here. That's 2 single crochets on top of each other. Now our second stitch is here. So we need to go under the V of the second stitch, make a whole new V over top of the first. Pop your needle down through the center of the very last stitch. And look at that. All we need now is a little crossbar, which we can do right now. So working across that little gap, making it look as invisible as it can be. All right, we're on this corner, so we shall work down the stitch, going along and around the bottom of the clusters of the corner. So that's one direction. Now we're going to do 2 directions, and I'm going to start splitting the yarn. Now we need another yarn split. Can start a little bit further in, this time work up the back of one of the stitches. Let's go across here and we'll do a few little stitches. The key is variety. Work my way across and down to the bottom of that cluster next to it. And one more time in the opposite direction, breaking threads as I go. There we go. Snip that one off. Now the yarn end from the first stitch, I'm going to take it up. That's better because it was actually lagging down behind. I'm going to go across as well. Weaving in and out of the little stitches. Now I'm going to work my way down where I can start splitting the yarn and making direction change. One, 2 and 3. I think I can fit one more if I do it without the yarn on my hook. There we go. I've broken some threads as I go and taking that back. Snipping that off. And there we have round 3. Now you'll notice I'm not swapping sides for this one, purely for the purpose of the exercise. This time I'm going to start with the single crochet and the chain 1. Single crochet and the chain 1. So we'll see a difference in how we finish this one as well. So getting underway with a cluster, a chain and a cluster. 2 clusters on the side. Okay, I've finished round 4. Let's snip off our yarn, pulling it through, popping it on the needle, and as per usual, I come over and I find out where the first stitch is. There's the single crochet and there's the chain. So we want our second stitch going under the V on the top, firming up our work and creating an all new V by taking your needle down the center of the last stitch. Having a look over the other side, I can see that we need to elevate that very first stitch a little, and while doing so we make another horizontal line here with the yarn, turning it over and always thinking the main priority is to have 2 direction changes and 2 working through the thread. So essentially breaking your yarn. And then the more work you can do with weaving in your yarn ends, the better. Okay, so that's over and back. That's worked through 2 lots of broken threads. Now I'm just going to keep going, weaving in and out some little stitches, and then finish off with another run of over and back. And if you lose your yarn tail like I just have, pop your needle through the stitches, empty, then pop the yarn end back in and pulling it through. Snipping that one off. We're going to work this other yarn end. We'll take it in a different direction so we don't double up too much in the same area. Taking it across, working in a few stitches, going down towards the bottom of the cluster. Once across, breaking a few threads. Once back, ensuring you break a few threads. Now we'll just go up the back of this cluster, working hard to only stay in the back of the stitches as well. And I think we'll just do one little one here. And I've lost my yarn end, so I'll thread my needle through, pop my yarn end on, and finish that off. Beautiful. Okay, there's round 4. Neat as a pin, neat as neat can be. I'm so happy with this. Every time I make one, it really is worth the effort of doing the invisible finish. And look at that. It's almost as neat on the back. Now there's one other finish off that I want to show you. I am using it currently on my temperature blanket, and for all accounts and purposes, it's working just fine. Let me show you what it is. Slip stitch on your hook, yarn over. We're going to do a standing double crochet. That's 1, 2 and 3, chain 1, 1, 2 and 3, Now working clusters along the side. Here I will leave you again. Finish the round, be back to you really soon. Okay, I'm on to my last double crochet of the round. Now for this little technique, I am going to slip stitch into the top of the first stitch made, yarn over and pull through. Now pull your yarn all the way through, and we don't need the needle. What we do is crochet and pull the yarn through the back loop of every stitch. So going into the back, pulling that yarn through, going into the back, pulling through, and we go around for the length of the yarn. The more times that this yarn is crocheted over, like in the corner and in between the clusters, the better. The more secure it will be. I do like this little finish. It's nice and easy. But as I said, I'm using it on my temperature blanket. So far, so good. But I do need to complete the blanket, give it some good use, and see how this method works out. Okay, we can leave that there. Then we just need to weave in our other one. We need to go across that little gap so that we have 3 stitches all. Okay, so this looks a bit different to the rest. Here is where this is a little more messy, because you can see that slip stitch that we had on our hook. Admittedly, that will probably be crocheted over if I did another round. So there's a con for this method. The pro is it's very easy. The con is it's not quite as neat and invisible as the others. Okay, working down the stitch, going across and back, breaking through some fibres. Working up, going over towards the cluster next to it, so it's not all worked in the same spot. Going across and back, breaking some fibres. Popping that yarn on the needle. And we're done. Let's snip this one off as well. There we go. Now, once the next round is done, you will crochet over this yarn end that has been looped in and out of the back loop on the top of each stitch. Let's do one more round so we can crochet over this unsightly bit here. It's really bothering me, you guys. I'm not loving that at all. Hence, I go to the extra effort of doing the standing double crochet to start with and the invisible finish at the end. Okay, so that's your standing double crochet. Chain 1, another cluster, I haven't told you the story yet about Isabel's pistachio coloured blanket that I made, lots and lots of granny squares. I tried using the method of just crocheting over longer yarn ends. And oh my goodness, that was the greatest mistake I could have made. I literally have re-darned every yarn end in again. They just all kept popping out and coming loose, and I just was not happy about that at all, and I will never ever try that finish again. I was feeling tired and a little bit lazy, so I thought I'd give it a go. Other people seem to do it successfully, but mine sure wasn't. It was a huge lesson learnt because it was a really big blanket too. So it took me twice as long as it needed to, re-darning lots of yarn ends. So now I know I'm happy to do it the way I like it. Gives me the great finish, and you only have to do it once. Once you accept the extra effort that you need to do for the invisible finish is just part of the process, the better things are, because yes, it takes a little bit longer, but boy, does it work out a whole lot better. And then you're happy with your work. So now I am back to accepting that this is the way it is, and I will weave my yarn ends in at the end of every row or round. I don't ever leave them for the end. That would just be too overwhelming for me. So just think of the mantra here when weaving in your ends, to change directions at least twice, and to also split your yarn at least twice. And then any extra additions are always welcome. Working across here, splitting yarns. And this little trick, when you've only got a little short yarn end left, pop your needle through first, then put the yarn on the needle and pull it through. And I'm going to do that one more time so I can go back this way. There's that one. Snip it off. The next one should go across to bridge that gap, making it look like there has just been no start or finish there at all. Now working your way with backwards and forwards, breaking through your yarn at least twice for both. Go down here. Slip through the bottom of that cluster. And we need one more run. Go up here through the center. Yarn end on the needle and done. And there we have it. In this tutorial, you got a few different methods of starting the round, a few different methods of finishing the round, and weaving in your yarn ends basically the same every time. Ensuring that you weave two different directions at least twice, and splitting the yarn with your needle at least twice as well. And remember, if you can't undo your work, you can rest assured that you've done a really good finish. you know, I almost wouldn't know where to start except that that's little stitches sticking out. Again, I hope this has been really helpful for you, and I'm more than happy for you to throw any other video ideas at me as well. Okay, I will see you again soon in the next video. Bye for now.